everybody. Welcome to another video in my sisters series. Now the boys are filming something different this week, but I'm going ahead and doing Saturday's video, which is an awesome part of my sisters army. Now something I've talked about before is making up a unit that does exist in the Sisters of Battle army, but isn't very popular. And of course I'm talking about Crusaders. I really love the idea of Crusaders in the Sisters army, however their models are notoriously hard to get. The originals are made in metal and I'm not a super huge fan of these, while the newer ones are also really cool too, but again are really hard to get a hold of. So in this video I'm going to create my own Crusaders for my Sisters of the Old Blood army. And it all started with this exclusive mini that I got from Adepticon. As soon as I saw this guy, I thought he would fit right in with my Sisters army aesthetic, and I thought a Crusader would be an awesome addition to my army. So sit back, relax, and I'll take you on the journey of how I made my Crusaders for my Sisters of the Old Blood army. So I want to talk a little bit about why I wanted to use this miniature in particular. This is a Cities of Sigmar guy, so technically he is for Warhammer Age of Sigmar, but there's something about the aesthetic that I thought really appealed to me and also just looked very Bloodborne. The one piece in particular was his head. This crow-shaped head reminded me a lot of like a plague doctor, and I thought would work really, really well. However, because this is an event exclusive miniature, you only get one of these guys. I cannot get multiples of these. This means I have to take on the daunting process of casting my own pieces. And naive Jen thought that she could do this in maybe 1 or 2 goes, but oh no, I had a long, long journey ahead of me. So to cast any miniature, if you never have before, you need a couple of components. The first thing is you need to make your mold. We have a bit of pink silicone in the studio. This is really easy to mix up and make your own cast. I also need to figure out how to position the piece itself so that I could create a successful cast. Now this was pretty difficult because he has a lot of fine and detailed points, so I wasn't 100% sure this cast was going to work, but I had to try just to figure it out along the way. Silicone doesn't take too long to harden, anywhere to a few hours. And once it's done, you're ready to do your first cast. So my silicone is all done and it looks like this awesome little pink gummy. I have managed to get the piece out, which is great, and it's undamaged, which is even better. So now I get to cast this in resin, and I'm not 100% sure how this is gonna go. It's kind of an odd shape. It's more like a U sort of shape, so hopefully the resin will get up into that canal. But we're gonna try either way, so I'm gonna mix up some resin, pour it in, and let it set to dry, and we'll see what happens, if anything happens at all, but wish me luck, let's go. After gently pulling the original piece out and making sure it was pristine, I could go ahead and start pouring resin into my mold. I used a toothpick to try and get into all of the nooks and crannies and left this for 24 hours to dry overnight. And that's pretty much the same casting process I repeated over and over and over again. Learning something new each time and getting different results. But while waiting for everything to cast, it was time to move on to my miniatures. Now Crusaders come in a unit of 2 to start with, so I'm just gonna go ahead and make 2 of these guys. I do want to incorporate a couple of parts from the original Crusaders ideas, and I would grab a few bits and pieces from different kits to kitbash something together. One of the first kits that I've wanted to use for a while is this Bretonnia Knights on Foot. These guys have a ton of awesome parts to them, and there's even a guy here with wings that go on his headpiece. And I thought these would look really good as a comparison to the Cities of Sigmar exclusive miniature. So I added these to the shoulder pads of my first guy. I also used the body from the Knights as well, as this would give me a really good foundation to start from. After that, I decided I needed to add on a couple of 40k pieces. They were looking a little bit too fantasy for my liking, so I needed to incorporate that sci-fi in there somehow. And Dave had pulled out this Horus Heresy Solar Auxiliary kit, and there were some awesome pieces in here too. One of my favorite bits was this chest piece that had the Aquila on the front of it. It's a little skull with the leaves on it, and I thought this looked really good. Both of them could be matching to again incorporate they came from the same unit. After a little bit of filing away, these fitted on nicely to the front. One of my favorite pieces of these Crusaders is the massive shields that they have. They're absolutely massive, and I knew there was one kit that had these shields in them that I could try and use. And that was the Dark Angels kit that had came out recently, the Deathwing Assault Box. These guys come with absolutely mammoth shields with a ton of designs on them. And originally I wanted to keep these designs, but I thought instead I would shave off
off everything that was on there and try something new. But I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the video. To try and make these guys a little bit more bloodborne-y and incorporate a bit better into my army was to give them capes. Now, I'm no stranger to milliput. I've been trying my best to get better at using it. I've decided I'm not a huge fan of green stuff. Grilliput is pretty good, but in this circumstance, I wanted to try and purely use milliput. And this time I enjoyed it a lot more. I was able to roll it out fairly thinly and drape it over the shoulders and even give it a bit of movement and life. Once I was happy with all of my components aside from casting my second head, I came back the next day to start painting them up and see how my cast went.
So it is the next day. It's been 24 hours since I did my resin cast, so we're gonna open it up and pray that it casts successfully. So let's have a look. So the cast didn't work. I think the way that the head was shaped made it incredibly difficult for the resin to get in. I don't know, we'll keep experimenting and see what happens. Hello, it is another day and another cast. This is my third attempt at trying to do one of these. Hopefully it's worked this time. I did get a bit of a cold over the weekend, so my voice is absolutely shot. But hopefully it's all been worth it, let's see. And if not, I'll just have to keep trying. But let's see if it worked. Alrighty, so I'm back for my final test. Dave suggested that I use this stuff instead. I've used this previously. It's like a really quick acting, it's actually not a resin, it's a polyurethane. It sets super, super fast, so I don't have a whole lot of working time with it, but I'm hoping there won't be many bubbles, which is what I seem to be having the issue with the resin. So I'm gonna give this a go. It also has a really quick drying time too, so I'll know in about an hour whether it's worked or not, which is great. And if not, I have a backup plan as well. So I'm gonna do one very last cast using this and hope this time, fourth, fifth time, I don't know how many times I've done this now, but hopefully this time it'll work. Either way, I'll have something at least. So let's get to casting our final cast. So with what I thought would be my final cast drying away, it was finally time to start priming my minis and get ahead with painting. Alrighty, I'm all done with my spraying and they look pretty good, so time to head back inside. Yeah. Oh, crap. One of my favorite colors to start painting with when it comes to my Sisters of Battle is the red that is on their cloth. So I decided to incorporate this same color to the capes on my Crusaders, trying to work in a little bit texture by giving them embroidered edges and stippling on that fabric effect. That was to incorporate a texture that I had never used before. Now, when I was looking up inspiration for this project, obviously I went straight to the Crusaders and I noticed they have a bunch of armor. And then I decided to go look at Bloodborne and see what they had for inspiration. And I was drawn to this one photo where it looked like they had Damascus steel armor. Now, if you don't know what Damascus steel is, it's this kind of ripply effect that you can see here, and typically it's found on a bunch of kitchenware knives. Now, I think it's really pretty, and I've never seen someone do this as a type of armor, so I'd like to think in my sort of universe and creation, Damascus steel is a bit broader or wider of a material, so therefore I'm going to be able to communicate that onto a miniature pretty well. Otherwise, if they were holding a knife, it would be quite small. And I think I want to put this on my shields for my guys. So I've already started laying down some of the non-metallic metal on the shield, just kind of giving it some of the shadows and highlights. Then I'm going to go over the top of this with the actual Damascus steel pattern. Now it's kind of similar to the wood grain where it's got the ripples and a couple of stippling effects as well. So I'm just really gently going to go ahead and try to recreate those ripples so it looks the same as the steel. I'm going to go back and forth using blacks and whites to try and create the same effect. Also trying to keep those highlights and shadows in at the same time. I've never done something like this before and I recently have seen a bunch of tutorials, but I'm just gonna go off a photo and try my best to recreate this as I can. Overall, I'm super impressed on how this came out. I kind of just did a bunch of trial and error and just gave it a red hot go, and I was really impressed with the results.
I have to say this has been more of a pleasant surprise compared to trying to cast this head for this other guy, which has been an absolute nightmare. But it is nice every now and then to get those small wins when it comes to painting. To try something new and to actually have it succeed is really nice. I think it could be cool to add a secondary light color onto here. I don't know what that's gonna be, and I'm also terrified of ruining what I've done already, so I'm just gonna leave it there and then maybe come back a bit later if I want to add some more effects. But again, I'm really happy with how this has turned out, and I think I might try and do their armor in a similar effect. I also don't know if I want to put a design on the shield as well that would go over the pattern. I don't know, there's a lot to think about, but I'm happy with how this is going. So let's start painting up the rest of it and see how we go. At this point in the painting process, I have no idea what cast number I'm up to with my heads. I've pretty much just set it aside to leave and forget and just keep trying to move on with the parts that I was really enjoying with this process. That meant painting up pretty much the rest of my minis while waiting for the head to cast. Even in their original designs, the Crusaders are pretty much fully metallic with a bit of red accents. So I wanted to do the same thing here. However, instead of going for a more blue steel look, I wanted to keep it more within the grungy blood tone hues. This meant adding in bits of mahogany and red into those steel colors, so it muted it down just a little bit. Once these guys were pretty much finished, it was the last call on my cast. This was my last opportunity to see if I could get this head to work or if I had to scrap the whole thing entirely and try to find something else that would work. And luckily enough, on my 5th and final attempt, this happened. My thing actually casted, yay! I have a tiny little head. Woo! It actually looks really, really good. I put it in the model for now, just to see if it fit, and it did. So I'm super excited. I also glued on a little frond part to the back of his head. I'm still really stuffy. My nose sounds awful. My voice sounds awful, but I can move on to finishing my project. So I'm super excited. I'm super glad that worked. I think that was attempt number 5 or 6. I'm sure there was a little counter in the bottom that our editor's gonna put in for me. So thanks, Vaughn, appreciate it. So I'm gonna keep moving on and finish up my project and then talk about the final process. I'm very excited, yay! Let's do it. So all I needed to do now was glue my head on and paint him up. No, it's not the most perfect cast I could get out of this mold. Clearly it had been used a couple of times, so a little bit was damaged, but hey, that's what battle damage is for. Either way, I'm still really happy with how this turned out, and I'm so glad that I finally got this thing to cast. And a little bit of basing fun, my models were pretty much done and ready for the final reveal. And here they are. They look so cool. I am super happy with these, and I'm actually really happy with the texture I've done for them as well. I think these guys look super moody and really cool, really unique as well. I didn't think I had this idea originally when I thought of Crusaders, but now I have these guys. I think that they're just an awesome addition to my army. So different, unique, I absolutely love them. The thing with Crusaders that I mentioned before is they're not actually particularly good units, especially in 2. They're actually really good in a unit of 6, followed with a preacher. Again, the preacher model is a little bit dated as well. It's like a guy screaming at his hand. However, Blackstone Fortress a couple years ago released a really cool model that you can use as a preacher. And luckily enough, we actually happen to have that model, and Dave has actually put my head on her for a previous video that he did. So this is really, really cool. I actually am gonna absolutely use this. I'm gonna repaint it up to match more towards the aesthetic of my army. So I get to play in my own Sisters of Battle army, which is totally badass, and I can't wait to have this unit fully finished. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I've really enjoyed this process of kit bashing my own mini and using an event exclusive mini as well. It was a whole lot of fun, and I hope you guys learned something from my process. If you didn't, I hope you enjoyed it either way. A huge shout out to all of our patrons over on Patreon. It's because of you guys we can make videos like this one, and we have so much more to bring you for this year. Now I need to go rest. I am all clogged up and gross from talking all day. So I will see you all in the next one where hopefully one of the guys has something really cool they're working on. Heard there's a really cool tank coming out that could be really cool for someone that's making Still Legion maybe? Don't know. Better stay tuned.